What's going on, guys? Hopefully everyone is doing well, staying safe and healthy. We've been doing pandemic updates for over a year now. We've been running the COVID Data Report Twitter account since November of 2021. And since then, it has grown to something I never even thought would happen. It's going up to 21,000 followers now. When I first started my Twitter account, COVID Data Report, I thought within a few weeks Twitter was going to suspend the account for misinformation or whatever because all I was trying to do was raise awareness of how bad COVID still was, but here we are, and then along came this YouTube account. So I thought, you know what? Why don't I do a little bit of a biography about myself? Where do I come from? Why do I do what I do? There's actually a reason why I started doing all this. So let's go back in time to biography of me. I'm Data Report. I grew up in Philadelphia. I've been living here all my life, well over 30 years now, and I grew up in the 90s and 2000s here. My original hobby, by all means, what I do here is not a hobby, but I do have a hobby, and I still follow it very rigorously, and that is meteorology and weather. Started following that since, golly, the early 2000s. I was the one that would go to school and read the weather forecast in front of the class. Yes, that's what I did back in the late 90s, early 2000s. At least for a couple grades, I did that. And that hobby has never left me. That's still my passion of a hobby. However, let's see, 2009, graduate high school. A year later, late 2010 into 2011, a problem came my way. My grandmother, who did not live too far away from our house, got dementia and Alzheimer's. And I had a big decision to make. I had to decide to become her caregiver. So in February of 2011, I became her caregiver. This went on for several years, and I would always constantly visit her all the time, multiple times a week prior to this. But we started to see a decline in the end, and I think this is a good opportunity to really raise awareness about dementia and Alzheimer's as well. She got it bad. We started to see a decline. One day my dad and I went down to her house. There was a pot on the stove. No water in the pot. And the stove was turned on. It was just, she didn't even realize she did that. And at that point it was like, whoa, we need to do something here. And we could not see putting her in a nursing home. She was in her late 80s at the time, almost 90 years old. I honestly forget the age she was when she passed away. But we had a decision to make, and that decision was, what do we do? And that decision was, I said, you know what, I'll sacrifice anything that I had, because I didn't actually have a sense of direction at the time. In high school, I went to a vocational high school. I took up computers, but I didn't have a sense of direction at the time. And right there, I got my sense of direction real quick. I decided to become her full-time, 24/7 caregiver, and I moved in with my grandmother. And I took care of her until, when was it? October 2014. From the time I started to the end, it was a tough experience. I mean, I watched her decline pretty significantly, and it got to the point at the end, because, Alzheimer's and dementia, it attacks the brain. So there's various different things you have to be aware of. You have to be aware of certain times of the day. Like when that sun's starting to set in the evening, that's when you really have to start paying attention, because it starts messing with the mind. They forget where they're at, and in their mind, they're living a different time. They're reverting back to 50, 60, maybe even 70 years ago, depending on the age of the patient. And that's what would happen. She would think, okay, what am I doing here? I need to go home. My mother's looking for me. I'm like, well, no, you are at your home. I mean, it was just very stressful, and unfortunately it only got worse from there. Towards the end, hospice had to come in. Eventually she forgot how to swallow. She would know how to chew, but she would forget how to swallow, and she lost weight, and then you forget how to breathe. And well, October of 2014 was it? She eventually passed away. I mean, it was a life-changing, very hard experience for me. And it was something that really, it was hard to deal with. Do I feel glad that I did it? 100%. I mean, I just could just not. My dad could not see it. I could not see her going into a nursing home, and it just really raised my eyes. Wow, Alzheimer's and dementia is such a bad disease. Let's fast forward a little bit. Eventually, then I did get another job. I worked at Rite Aid for a while. I did that for a couple of years, and then all suddenly opportunity came around. Uber started up around here. It was already ongoing, but I was hearing about it. I'm like, this is interesting. I could meet some people through Uber and Lyft. Get to know people, get to know my way around my area. I thought, oh, and I really enjoyed it. Let's fast forward a little bit further. Then later on came delivery services. They started up here. We already had Grubhub here, but delivery services started up. I signed on with that. I think 2018 I started transitioning to more delivery versus rides. But I still did rides for people, and so on. And let's fast forward again. Late 2019, we're still doing rides. Early 2020. This is probably something that really, it's a time frame that changed a lot of people's lives. We all know what happened. COVID entered the picture. And it entered the picture for me earlier than most people. I was doing a ride in Pennsylvania. It's here in southeast Pennsylvania. It was just a 5 to 10 minute ride. Picked up someone in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. The person had just returned from traveling. Didn't pick them up at the airport, but I picked them up. I think it was at a Wawa. If you don't know what it is, it's a humongous chain of gas station convenience stores down here. It's just a huge phenomenon. Anywho, that's not what this video is about. I picked them up. Wasn't thinking anything about COVID at the time. I wasn't even really aware of what was going on with it at the time. I picked him up, and he sounded like he was sniffling and coughing. Didn't think anything of it. Within the time of that evening, started to get a scratchy throat. This is January of 2020. Later that evening, had a scratchy throat. The next day, still wasn't feeling well. But again, I didn't know anything about COVID-19 at the time. And then, next day, wasn't feeling great either, and started to get worse, as time went on. But it really didn't get too bad. The first week, really, honestly, wasn't that bad. I had a scratchy throat. I was coughing a lot. Had fatigue. And time goes on, I still didn't know anything about COVID. Halfway through that week, I believe it was, into the next week, we got a phone call. Now, I still wasn't living back here at home yet, but we got a phone call that a very dear friend of ours passed away. He had a smoking problem. He drank a lot over the years. He died of cancer. And it was very sad. So obviously, we all had to go to the funeral. This was before any COVID restriction. This was still January. I mean, we didn't know to social distance. We didn't know to do any of that. Some people early on did, but I was not educated on what was going on at the time. You'll find out when I did get educated in a little bit, how I really taught myself about everything that you see me do now. So we went to the funeral. Didn't think of it. I was still coughing away. After that, several days later, I started to get the fatigue issue. Then food started to taste just terrible. Food was just absolutely tasting horrible. Nothing smelled right to me. And that issue, luckily for me, did not last very long. Here's what did last: the coughing and the fatigue. The coughing and fatigue went in through most of February. I had stopped working during all this time. For multiple weeks, I did not go out. I seem to recall that I went to urgent care. I went to my doctor. They couldn't figure out what it was. It wasn't flu, because I believe the flu test, I believe they took a flu test, and that was negative. And this just went on. Then eventually, as we got later into February, I improved. But the coughing never fully went away. The fatigue, it never fully went away. I mean, it got better, but it didn't go away. March, I was fine. Started to learn about COVID later on. 1 week before everything shut down, stupid me, I'm being fully honest here. Stupid me went with some relatives who came down to the flower show, and we started to hear about COVID. I'm thinking, nah, everything's going to shut down? Nah. Well, guess what? It did. A week later, everything shut down. Then it started getting serious. And at the time, I was a part of a weather community. Remember, weather was my hobby. I loved tracking the weather. I would do a weather forecast on social media or whatever. And I just loved tracking the weather. Then a thread popped up on one of the sites I was on about COVID. I was like, maybe this COVID thing, maybe this is really serious. And sure enough, we found out real quickly in March when New York City and then everything shut down how serious this was. And then it just hit me. Wow. And the one thing that started happening when everything closed, delivery apps, my goodness, it just became insanity. And at that time, right away I started masking. And I continued working right on through to about summer of 2020. Then a big change happened. Number one, we had all of the incidents that went on, and to some degree it did get unsafe from a violence standpoint. Number two, my issues started coming back and some new things started happening. My fatigue got worse. My coughing was getting worse again. Then I developed some chest pains. And I'm like, what the heck is this? Then I saw a report on World News that summer about long COVID. People were having issues long term beyond COVID. I was like, well, that's very interesting. This describes exactly what's happening with me. Headaches started popping up. At some point, I did get the headaches. I forget when precisely they started. My bigger issue was just being tired a lot. My chest hurting, coughing. I mean, it was really annoying. I mean, there were many days I would not drive, and I did. I stopped driving. I found out about the CARES Act. I said, you know what? I'm just going to have to stop driving. I did not feel safe at the time going to a doctor, so I put that off for a very long time. I didn't finally go to a doctor until February of 2021? Yes. I believe it was February of 2021. And at that point, I wasn't involved with the weather website anymore because at that point, people were starting to minimize with COVID. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to deal with this anymore. They're laughing at me for posting case updates on our website. And I didn't really want to take to social media until one thing did change my mind about that. We'll get to that in a moment. I went to my doctor at the time. I didn't actually get to see the doctor. I think I saw the nurse practitioner, whoever it was, and I told them my whole story of how I got sick early on. They were like, no, COVID didn't really come here in the East until later on, later into the spring. I'm like, well, hello. At the very beginning of the pandemic, there were so many people sick up in New York with mysterious illnesses that they couldn't figure out what it was. And then eventually found it was COVID. So, like, yeah, we have a lot of people that commute between New York and Philadelphia for work daily. And it's true. It used to be the case. I don't know how many do it now, but, I mean, a lot of people go up there. And people just go up there for pleasure as well, or come down here for the weekend. So, don't tell me COVID did not exist. She really brushed me off. She brushed off all of my issues, and I was like, wow, well, that doesn't help me at all. And my issues, they really came and go. It wasn't consistent. It wasn't consistent where they just stayed steady. I mean, some weeks would be fine. Other weeks it was like, wow, the fatigue. And then eventually the headaches would come on. And all these, like a pressing feeling I would happen. I still remember Thanksgiving. It was just the three of us. It was just me and my parents. I still remember Thanksgiving. Was it 2020, 2021? I can't remember. But I had to physically stop eating because my stomach was just so, and chest was like, what the heck was going on? And I actually sat on the couch crying because I wanted answers. I said, can someone please give me answers? This never happened before I was sick in 2020. And time went on, and let's fast forward to later on in 2021. I was still vigorously sharing COVID information with my friends, and I said, you know what? It's time that my voice gets heard. Omicron entered the picture Thanksgiving of 2021. I think that's when I had my episode where it was like, what the heck is this? Anywho, Omicron entered the picture. I said, whoa, this is really scary. I said, you know what? I need to tell my side of the story. I need to report on what's going on because the media wasn't talking about things enough. So I said, you know what? I'm going to start my own social media page on Twitter. I already had a Twitter account in the past. I used to tweet traffic information in Philly. I did that. That was a hobby too, believe it or not, from the early 2000s on, or from 2009 on, or somewhere around there. I would tweet traffic information in Philly. I just thought, heck, why not? But let's go backwards a little bit. One of the other things that really sparked my motive to post to make a Twitter account, COVID data report, was something else happened in the spring of 2021, soon after the vaccines came out. A good friend of ours, double vaccinated, tested positive for COVID. He went to the urgent care. He was having trouble breathing, and they ran a COVID test. They said, "Oh no, you had COVID." Now this was 2 weeks after he was fully vaccinated. Not only did he test positive, they said, "You know what? You need to get to the hospital immediately." He ended up being hospitalized for a couple weeks. The COVID caused him to have blood clots in his lungs. God forbid he survived. God forbid he's doing better. I have seen him since then. But it's scary. I mean, and that raised my eyes like, whoa, our friend was double vaccinated. They're saying breakthrough infections are rare, breakthrough hospitalization. It doesn't happen. And wait a second, he just had a breakthrough case. What's going on here? That summer, I vigorously was searching Twitter for any breakthrough case I could find, and to my surprise, I found quite a few of them. Meanwhile, the media continuously reported that, oh no, breakthrough's rare. Remember Delta? They were saying, oh, most of it's the unvaccinated. Yeah, that didn't faze me too well, and it just, one thing led to another, and I started my Twitter account in the fall, late fall, post Thanksgiving of 2021, and I says, gee, I wonder how long this is going to last before Twitter says, you can't be sharing stuff like this. I would share case data, New York State. I was heavy on New York State at the time. And I guess I still am in the pandemic updates. As you see, we almost always talk about New York State. And, just one thing led to another. I didn't have a medical degree. I did not have a college experience. What I did have was a personal experience with this virus. And I started to teach myself about the dangers of catching COVID. And I'm finding out, hey, COVID causes Alzheimer's and dementia. Well, hello, I had hands-on experience for roughly about, I guess we'll say about 4 years, 4 years, because really, my grandmother's case, it started prior to us moving down. I started to see a decline. I noticed it, and we made mention of it from time to time, and of course, the incident with the pot, no water in the pot on the stove, it's like, oh, hello, yes, this was not good. So when I found out that, hey, COVID can cause brain damage, I started thinking, oh no, no one wants that. Because what I witnessed and went through with my grandmother, it was just, that's another day. Maybe eventually, we might even do a Twitter space on that to raise awareness with Alzheimer's and dementia. We might even do a video series on that. I don't know. I would like to do something. Maybe I would like to get involved with the Alzheimer's Association. I know I never did that, but I would like to do something because it is such a terrible disease, and it makes me so sad to hear that COVID, for someone who's in an early stage of this, can cause the disease to get worse. It's just like, it breaks my heart because I know what I went through. I know what I saw my grandmother suffer. It was very sad to see. So, anywhere, we were back to 2021, all of 2022, I did this account, and it started to grow. It's like, whoa, people want to see what I'm saying. And now we have almost we have over 21,000 followers, which I'm not in this for the followers. I am here to raise awareness and become an advocate of, hey, you don't want to catch this virus. It can really change your life. And it did change mine. Eventually I went back to work, but I don't do rides anymore for people. I do a few private rides. They're masked and whatnot, but I don't pick up random people anymore. I do not want to get reinfected. I'm trying to avoid that as much as possible, and the fact that I had to limit my work, I couldn't upkeep my grandmother's house anymore. I had to move back home, which is if you notice here, from the time we started doing these updates to now, as you can see here, we're in a different setting. I have my own room here. I call it my office now, basically. And yeah, summer of last year, I said, you know what? Let's do a video format of a pandemic update. A few people suggested that I go and do that. I've dabbled with YouTube in the past. I would do some recordings of me riding around years ago. I actually did a couple weather videos at one time. I said, you know what? Let's do a daily pandemic update, because the media really wasn't talking about COVID, where I just run through the numbers, maybe add a little opinion of my own, and that's how it started. Then eventually the data got less, and I said, let's add some news stories. Now we do about maybe almost half news, half data, depending on what's going on. We're going to do a pandemic update later today. We don't always do one on a Saturday, but today, yeah, there's a lot of things I have to share today. If I find something, someone brings something to my attention, I find something on Google search or whatever, I'm like, wow, this needs some more attention. People need to know about this. And now that there's less data in news, sometimes we just talk about celebrity health in general. I don't have a medical degree. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I'm not college educated. I'm someone who is teaching myself about what's going on by reading studies, reading news stories. I'm presenting the data. I'm sharing my own personal experience, and I am basically trying to raise awareness of what's going on. Do I add in my opinion sometimes? Yes. Have all of my predictions since I started this channel, have they all come correct? No. We thought there would be a spring wave. Was there? No, but we're clearly in a wave now. I mean, let's face it, a ton of people thought there would be a spring wave. And when there's a positive to report on, like, oh wow, this is interesting, wastewater's dropping in a certain area, of course I'm going to report on. I'm like, well, this is some good news. Let's hold out hope. Let's keep our fingers crossed and at least try and be positive that things maybe are going to get better. But here we are right now. We're in the COVID wave, and I thought you all would like to know a little bit more about me. Got any other questions? Hit me up down below. Hope you enjoyed this little biography about myself. Now you know who I am. Now you know the real me, I guess. Am I still a weather hobbyist? Of course. That's why I decided, you know what? Climate change is an issue. Weather is an issue. I enjoy tracking the weather. Why don't I do videos on it? Which I do. I started another channel at Climate Data Report. Will that grow? I don't know. I'm surprised this channel has grown. What do we have now? 1,500 subscribers? I mean, wow. I'm impressed. I'm also surprised that YouTube has never said, hey, you shouldn't be talking about this. But you know what? Here we are. Apparently, I must be doing something right. I must be helping save lives. That's really what it's about. I want you all to be safe. And I do that by doing the research and presenting everything to you when we do our updates each and every day. Pandemic updates, wastewater updates. I mean, it's something I now enjoy doing. Will I be doing this forever? I don't know. How long is this pandemic going to be a thing? Will I ever be able to say, hey, COVID is now endemic? I really hope we get to that at one point in time, because it is really tiring going through these waves again and again and again and not seeing people wake up and realize, hey, this COVID, this is really a bad thing. Maybe I should take it seriously. Maybe it could have a long-term effect on health. Yeah, hello. To this day, each time I think, oh, I'm going to be better now. I'm not going to have long-term COVID issues anymore. Something pops up. The most scary one just popped up 2 nights ago. I was eating chicken teriyaki. This is something else weird that happens. I may have missed out a couple symptoms that I have. This is one of them that really almost scares myself. I was eating chicken teriyaki. I don't know. I now apparently have an allergic reaction to a marinade in it or something. I couldn't swallow it, and I didn't take that big of a bite. You know, it was a little tiny little bite or something. Gets stuck in my throat now. This has happened several times with various different things. Rice, for some reason. I tried eating rice again recently. It wasn't a problem. Back in 2021, before I saw the doctor, yeah, I had a scary experience eating rice. It was like, whoa. It was like getting stuck in my throat, and wow. And yes, we did leave some things out about my full experience. I should add them. I forgot to add them. Let me add them real quickly. I ended up switching to another doctor, and you may have heard this story before. I ended up switching to another doctor, the doctor I had when I was a kid. The reason why I stopped seeing him, he changed offices. I didn't need to see a doctor anymore because I was fine and healthy. Wasn't having any health issues. And then one day I got a regular cold or something, and I need something prescribed, so I went to my parents' doctor's office. Well, anyhow, I changed back to him. It took a long time to do so. It took like 6 months. Finally, I got back to him, and during that time period that I did get back to him, he sent me to several specialists. I never had asthma before COVID. Found that out. And I also found out that I needed an inhaler. I have two various different inhalers here. One is a rescue inhaler. Another is Breztri. I take Breztri daily. We found out I have a continuously low vitamin D level. I take vitamin D daily. And we're finding out all these different little things. And I was supposed to go back to the sleep specialist, which I had a... For the energy loss, he sent me to a sleep specialist, but the sleep specialist also is a pulmonary functionist. I had a pulmonary function test done twice. I was supposed to have it done a third time. Canceled because it's not safe right now. But we found out I do have moderate asthma because I told you, I went back to work in the middle of, when was it? Middle of 2022? I think it was middle of 2022. I don't fully remember. Maybe it was the middle of 2021. It might have been the middle of 2021. But the point I'm trying to make here is, while I was doing some of these deliveries where there were big steps, I would quickly get out of breath. I'm going, what the heck is this? This never used to happen. I used to enjoy taking long walks. I'll go 5, 6, 7 mile walks. Have no issues. And then that would happen. And that's when I was like, whoa, we need to get this checked out, which I did. I got it all checked out, and sure enough, found out I developed asthma post-COVID. So, yep, here we are. Here I am. I do these pandemic updates. I run the Twitter account, and that is going to continue for the foreseeable future as long as there are health threats that are out there. We talk about COVID. We talk about other stuff. Here we are. So I thank each and every one of you for watching my channel. I thank you for following me along my journey. Where is this journey going to take us? I don't know. It's going to continue. We're going to continue to have updates. We're going to have a pandemic update later on today. And my other channel will continue to track the ever-changing weather. We got a Gulf threat in the tropics, so that's something we'll have to track. And I will enjoy tracking that and forecasting that for you. Alrighty, guys. That does it for today's update. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe down below if you want to. And if you know anyone that wants to see the content on my channel or hear my story that I just told you, by all means, share this with. Thank you for watching. And again, thank you for following me along this journey. Remember, folks, we are all in this together. Have a great day, everyone.